I'm Evan and I'm 28 years old. After I got divorced, I moved to a small town in Alabama called Chatham. I did not really have anywhere else to go besides my parents' house, so I ended up moving into my grandfather's old home. He had passed away a few years ago and left the house to our family. The house is about 10 minutes from town and sits on 10 acres of land surrounded by thick woods. It is very quiet out there, and I thought I would enjoy that. The house is pretty old. It has wooden floors that creak when you walk on them, and the doors are hard to open because they stick. No matter how high I turned up the heat, the place always felt a little cold. But since I had no better option, and it was free, I moved in. The first few nights were normal. I spent time unpacking and cleaning. In the evenings, I would sit on the porch with a beer. It was peaceful. No cars, just the wind blowing through the trees and sometimes an owl. Then the strange sounds began. It started on the 7th night. I had just gotten into bed at around midnight. I was nearly asleep when I heard someone whistling outside. It was not a tune I recognized. It was slow, off-key, and a little broken. It sounded like someone was walking through the woods behind the house while whistling. It made me uneasy, but I thought it was probably a hunter or a neighbor who had been drinking. But the next night, it happened again. Same tune, same time, but it sounded closer this time. I got out of bed and turned on the porch light. I did not see anyone. I grabbed a flashlight and walked around the yard. I found nothing. No footprints, no movement, only the sound of the whistling fading into the woods. I tried to ignore it after that. I stayed in bed and tried to fall asleep even when I heard the whistling. However, every time it would begin at nearly the same moment, around 1:17 a.m. I know that sounds strange, but it always happened between 1:15 and 119. It was like it followed a schedule. I started thinking maybe someone knew I was alone and was trying to scare me. A few days later, I called the sheriff's office. An older deputy whom I will call Deputy H came out to the house. He had worked in law enforcement for many years. I told him what I had been hearing and he went quiet for a moment. Then he said something that chilled me. He said, "Your grandfather used to call us about this same thing. He said someone was walking around whistling outside the house late at night. Always during the spring. We never found anything. I thought he was just getting old, but now you're hearing it, too." That scared me. I had no idea my grandfather had dealt with this. Deputy H told me to keep my doors locked and not to go outside after dark. I was already doing that, but I became even more careful. I started checking every window. One night, I even put chairs under the doorknobs just to be extra safe. But the whistling kept coming, and each night it got a little closer. One night, I heard it coming from behind the shed. It was louder than ever, like the person was right there. I looked through the blinds with my flashlight, but I could not see anything. I did not go outside. The next night, the whistling came from the front porch just by the door. There were 3 long whistles, then silence. The night after that, it seemed like the sound was coming from beneath the house. I swear it felt like someone was in the crawl space, whistling up through the vents. That night, I was unable to sleep at all. The next day, I went up into the attic to look for anything my grandfather might have left behind. I found a box filled with his journals. He had written about the whistling, too. He said it happened every spring for more than 10 years. He never figured out who it was, but he believed someone was watching the house. He wrote that he used to sit up all night with a rifle near the door just in case. He also said it only started after my grandmother died when he was living alone. I called Deputy H again. He came back, read the journals, and looked worried. He told me to be extra careful. He warned, "Do not open the door unless you know who is there." That night, I kept watch. I sat on the couch with a shotgun across my lap. Even though I barely knew how to use it, I waited. At exactly 1:17 a.m., the whistling started again. But this time, it did not come from outside. It came from inside the house. It was coming from the hallway. I froze. The hallway light was off, but I could hear the sound getting closer step by step. I stood up, pointed the shotgun, and shouted, "Who's there?" The whistling stopped. I turned on the hallway light. No one was there. I did not sleep again after that. The next 2 nights were quiet. No whistling, no sounds. I thought maybe it was finally over. On the 3rd night, I went to bed shortly after midnight. This time, I did not stay up. I kept the hallway light on just to be safe. At exactly 1:17 a.m., I woke up to a new sound. Knocking. Slow, heavy knocks. 3 of them. They were coming from the back door from inside the house. Then silence. I did not move. I lay still in bed listening. A minute later, I heard the floor creak in the hallway. Then it creaked again. Someone was walking down the hallway. Then the hallway light went out. I grabbed the shotgun, heart pounding, and stepped out of the bedroom. The hallway was pitch black. At the far end, I saw someone. A figure dressed in black with a pale face stood silently staring at me. I raised the shotgun, but my hand shook uncontrollably. I tried to speak, but my mouth was too dry to get the words out. I shouted, "Don't move." Then I saw the person slowly lift one leg like they were about to run. I yelled again, "Stop." At that moment, the person ran out of sight down the hallway. I heard their heavy footsteps racing toward the front door and out into the night. I ran after them and fired the shotgun. I did not fire into the air. I aimed directly into the darkness, hoping to hit my target. I shouted, "Don't come back." The sound of the shot echoed off the walls of the house and the deck. I locked every door, got into my truck, and drove into town. I slept in the truck that night. The next morning, Deputy H went to inspect the house. The front door was unlocked again. That confirmed what I already feared. Whoever it was, they had a key to my grandfather's house. Everything was in place. Nothing was stolen and nothing inside was damaged. But Deputy H suggested off the record that I move out. He said someone in those woods clearly did not like that my grandfather or I had been living there. Later that day, I visited a hardware store and replaced all the locks. Right after that, I packed a bag and went to stay with my parents in another state. My dad eventually handled selling the house. We took anything that had sentimental value. The rest we either left or sold. My dad did not tell the new buyers that someone had apparently been stalking the house for years. We still do not know how they got the key, who they were, or why my grandfather never told us anything about it. All of that deeply bothers me. I believe it was a disturbed person living nearby. I do not believe in ghosts and I do not think I imagined it. This was real. After everything that happened, I realized I could never live in the countryside again. I eventually moved to a city. That whole experience left me too shaken to live anywhere remote ever again.